There are the things that you say, and there are the messages you send. These are not always the same thing. In this episode, you will uncover if you are sending this potentially damaging subliminal message to your market and what to do about it, how to correct it if that's indeed what you are doing. Let's dive in. So here's the question. In a world where the rules of business have been written by men, how do women entrepreneurs like us, women who want to make millions of dollars and impact millions of lives, how do we create enormous success on our terms? That's the question, and this show explores the answers. Welcome to Power Presence Position. I'm your host, Eleanor Beaton, and I'm on a mission to double the number of women entrepreneurs who generate over $1 million per year in annual revenue. I'm an award-winning entrepreneur, author, and leadership coach. I'm a wife, mom of 2 boys, and I'm the CEO of a 7-figure business. Stick around because on this show, you'll learn how to think, communicate, and get paid like a 7-figure CEO. Let's go. Hello there. Welcome to Power Presence Position. I'm your host, Eleanor Beaton. This is episode number 426. I am jazzed up on coffee this morning, and I am ready to share a really powerful message with you today, both subliminally and literally. This is something that I see so many women entrepreneurs who are really focused on taking their businesses to the 7-figure mark. So much of it is going to come down to what I'm sharing today. And for those of you who are already well past the 7-figure mark, this is going to be an excellent reminder of the things either you did or the company founders did to get you to where you are today. And it's a reminder of what it takes to stay there. So the Harvard Business Review has this major body of research that really takes a look at how companies thrive through a recession. And of course, we are in an unprecedented downturn right now. It's interesting. I was reading an article in The Economist recently that was talking about the fact that for years, researchers have kind of known and been preparing for the fact that a pandemic, such as what we're experiencing, was going to happen. It wasn't a matter of if it was going to happen, it was a matter of when. But interestingly, in many of their calculations, they anticipated that the death toll would be higher and the economic fallout would be lower. Well, of course, happily, the health impacts of COVID have been significant, but they have not been what many of the models suggested they might be. But the economy has taken a much harder hit than people anticipated, and that's not done. So it's really incumbent on any entrepreneur, any leader, to be taking that seriously and be doing all that you can to prepare yourself to lead and thrive through the recession. And many companies will. And so one of the things that the research has uncovered is that it is the leaders who thrive during recessions, okay? The leaders. Now, there's a whole body of work that we could talk about with respect to how to position your company as a leader, particularly during a downturn. But what I wanted to focus in on today is the connection between market leadership and consistency. Consistency is one of those kind of boring oatmeal flavored words, a little bit like discipline that nobody wants to hear, but it's so important. You really can't grow and thrive without it. Leaders are consistent. And I challenge you to take a look at the top performers in your marketplace. And what you will see is an incredible amount of consistency. In fact, no matter what they're doing, no matter what tactic they have employed, and you will find that they're all employing slightly different tactics, one thing that you will see over and over and over is they are all consistent human beings and consistent companies. Consistency is the thread that drives market dominance, that drives market leadership. It's like Newton's law of motion, right? Or the law of inertia. Objects in motion will stay in motion. And I see this all the time. So both that objects that are in motion will stay in motion, and that market leaders are the companies and the individuals and the women who are willing to be very, very consistent over long periods of time. And I also see the opposite, which is that people who struggle to get traction have a difficult time staying consistent. They get inconsistent. And it's interesting because it's kind of like a chicken or the egg thing. So is it that they started being inconsistent, because they were going through a hard time? Or is it that they went through a hard time and then they started being inconsistent? I'm not sure. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter. The reality is what really matters is, can you take ownership for it and make a different choice? Let me give you a couple of examples, and some of these they might hurt a little, okay? I'm going to forewarn you, they might hurt a little bit. But I want to give a couple of examples of what inconsistency really starts to look like. Inconsistency, and this is going to be something, I'm going to really bring it down to a very, very practical level. Inconsistency looks like suddenly not having your camera on for a Zoom meeting. Inconsistency looks like suddenly stopping producing your podcast. Inconsistency looks like not showing up on social media when you typically do. Inconsistency typically manifests as a lack of visibility. You just stop being visible. You just start hiding. And I see this all the time, and I certainly have experienced that pull myself, where you just kind of want to stay in bed and keep the covers over your head. And this is a very human feeling. And you can be a leader and still be human. Leaders are human too. But the challenge is the message you are sending to your market is a hot and cold message. And subliminally, you are telling your marketplace, hey, I'm not a leader. You can't count on me. Don't trust me. Truth hurts, right? Truth hurts. So sometimes when I talk this way, and I can see some of you getting mad, I can totally see you might be getting mad. And then sometimes when people get mad when I talk like this, they will pull out the dagger, which is, Eleanor, that's just so masculine. You're in your masculine right now. You're being so masculine. I'm like, hell no. No. You don't get to throw the patriarchy in my face. I am pragmatic, okay? And I have respect for my relationship with my customers and my audience. And I'm not going to show up like a dilettante hobbyist because I'm not feeling good that day, that week. And I know the excellence and the value of the contribution that you make. And that's why I'm telling you this. I don't want you showing up like that either, because guess what? You're not a dilettante hobbyist. But if you fail to show up consistently, if you fail to be consistent, that is the subliminal message that you are sending to your marketplace. And it starts to detract and derail from the good work you've done up to this point. So at this point, some of you might be really mad because you're like, what? I have been inconsistent. Have I just been shooting myself in the foot consistently? Yeah. So if you have been inconsistent, then one thing you have been consistent with is kind of shooting yourself in the foot. I'm not going to lie. That's just the truth. But I think both of us are big-hearted and have been around the block enough to know that that's okay. What happened in the past is helpful only in that it informs better decisions today. It's like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. So we are all human, and we all go through times where we don't feel like showing up, where something has happened. Maybe we're just kind of going through a phase where we just don't feel like being visible. Maybe we're going through a phase where, you know what, we're feeling low, we're feeling depressed, we're going through a super tough time, and we don't want to show up consistently. So these are all realities. And of course, there's things that you can do like planning ahead, like, stocking up, making sure that you've got things in place so that when you don't feel like being visible, you don't have to. All of that. And 5 million people could tell you that. But it doesn't help you in that moment where you don't have the big arsenal of blog posts pre-written. You need to show up for that meeting, and everybody else is going to be on camera and you're not going to be on camera. You need to turn on your freaking camera. So what do you do then? That's what I want to talk about right now. There's a bunch of different reasons why this happens, okay? So it could be that you might not feel like being consistent because you might be a little bit burnt out, which is a real thing, right? You might not be feeling well. You might be feeling kind of at the end of your rope. You might be taking a pause to kind of shift direction or to do some work on your next initiative. There's a lot of reasons, both constructive and potentially destructive, that you might not be feeling, or you might be actually struggling to maintain consistency. So what do you do? And the answer is, in those periods, you do the minimum. You do the minimum. I was doing a group coaching call the other day, and I was advising somebody to do the minimum. And she was like, wow, Eleanor, that's the last thing I thought you would say. And I was like, no. You can get a long way doing the minimum, right? I'm not suggesting doing the minimum for years and years and years, unless you're in a place where you are suffering for years and years and years, and you just are going to kind of do the minimum to get by. But what I am suggesting is that for most leaders, you're going to go through periods. It could be a few days, it could be a few hours, it could be a few weeks. Quite frankly, it could be a couple months where you are not feeling it. And this is where typically, if you have all or nothing thinking, I have to be super extra and do all the things, or I'm just not going to do any of it, that's typically the kind of thinking that I see that starts to derail your consistency. So this is where knowing what is my minimum, what's the minimum I could do today to still show up, to still be able to drive things forward with a certain degree of consistency. Is it my best, 100% best max effort? No, but it's something, and that something is better than nothing. So really understanding what your minimum is so critical. And the minimum, like just that consistency of showing up, that's what leaders do. We don't expect leaders to be superhuman, but we do expect them to have a certain degree of self-mastery that they can show up consistently. And that's what I'm inviting you to do. And so in some cases, you do that by maintaining the minimum. Now, there's a distinction here again, which is that when it comes to doing the minimum, I want you to think about focusing on the minimum that is important but not urgent. Urgent stuff always gets handled, always. Important stuff, the stuff that truly drives your business forward, that is the stuff that is easier to put off. So let me give you an example, a very practical example. For many of you, your database, in fact, I cannot think of a single business for whom having an email list of qualified buyers is not massively important. And it's so interesting. I was talking to a client recently who is, she was saying, I always thought about email lists as something quite crusty. And I was like, do you hate money? Do you hate money? Because that would be a really awesome belief if you don't like money. If you like money, and we were kind of joking around, but I stand by my point, having a database with email connections, not just likes on social media, you do not own that asset. And any business owner building the bulk of your, fortune on a rented asset is not smart. We both know this. So we're talking about, building the email list. So you need an email list. Right? And that is something that building your email list is something that is not urgent. There's nobody standing over you being like, you need to build your email list right now. But it's something that's very, very important. And so you might ask yourself this question: how can I add one qualified person to my email list today? That's the bare minimum, but that's better than none. And if you're doing it right, if you really know who your MVB is, adding just one great person to your email list can make or break your business. If you're able to do that consistently every day, what's one thing I could do today to add one person to my email list? Another question you might ask yourself is, how can I make one offer today? So again, these are examples of maintaining consistency with respect to the things that are important, but not necessarily urgent. Now, one of the important things that I do is, so first, I actually do that thing where I think to myself, what's one thing I can do today that will organically build my email list? But the other thing that I ask myself is, or one of the other sort of important things that I have on my list that is in my bare minimum pile, is creating my weekly emails. That is important because it's where I really maintain a relationship with my readers and with my audience, like a fun relationship that's enjoyable and productive for both of us. And P.S., if you're not on my email list, you should be. And here's why. Not only do people tell me that my email list and my emails, which I send out 3 times per week, are the only non-personal emails they read, but they're also really entertaining, they're really fun, they're really practical, but importantly, they will inspire you to find and unleash your original voice. You can't separate a woman, her power, and her distinctive voice. And over thousands of years, the way that we disempower women and the way that we as women disempower ourselves is we take away our voices, or we take away other women's voices. So as an entrepreneurial leader, having a distinctive voice is very important, whether you're selling widgets or whether you're selling your book or whether you're selling personal development. And there is so much pressure on women to conform, to meet social standards, and to sound like everybody else, that I think it's really, really important for those of us who do have a distinctive voice to use it, to inspire other people to use it. That's what my emails show you how to do. Okay. So head on over to eleanorbeaton.com/join and find out why every time I send an email, I have multiple people respond to me, thanking me, clapping their hands with glee, and saying, literally, these are the only emails I read that are non-personal. All right, so I leave you with that. So maybe the minimum is to join my email list, eleanorbeaton.com/join. But beyond that, give yourself a break, give yourself some space, but also ponder this question, especially when you're not feeling it. What's the minimum I can do today? And maybe that's just one thing. And make sure that one thing is not the urgent stuff that's going to get taken care of anyway, but the important stuff that can help you drive long-term growth. I hope you found this one useful. We'll talk to you next time. Same bat time, same bat place. All right. Have a great, beautiful week, everybody. Today's episode of Power Presence Position is sponsored by the podcast I'm a Millionaire, So Now What? With Colleen O'Connell Campbell. Colleen O'Connell Campbell is a brilliant financial advisor for entrepreneurs. She is a longtime client, and her show, I'm a Millionaire, So Now What? Covers inspirational stories and practical advice for self-made millionaires in the making. And as a woman entrepreneur, she really understands the work of building wealth, of retaining wealth, and of investing wealth in a way that is meaningful to you. Go check out the show. Thank you for listening to Power Presence Position, your message, your mission, your millions. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of life's greatest pleasures is enriching conversation with intelligent, insightful women entrepreneurs who are unapologetic about their ambition. If this is you, then you need to join the Power Presence Position community of practice. This party is happening over on Facebook. you can access it by going to eleanorbeaton.com/community. Join us over there where you can access our book club, happy hours, executive roundtables where we talk about the issues that matter most to women entrepreneurs. This is a high-level conversation, the best conversation about women entrepreneurship on the internet. Join us at eleanorbeaton.com/community.